Alright, so we got this NB Miata. We're going to be installing carbon Miata wing on it. First thing, we're going to mount the wing and figure out where we're going to drill the holes. See, we already got the factory hole, and we're going to have to add another hole on the inside here. So first thing we got to do, if you notice, the brackets aren't lining up here for the bolts. Let's see. All right, so you can see here the bolt holes aren't lining up to the brackets. So we're gonna elongate the holes on the bracket so we can bolt the bracket onto the wing. Same thing on this side. This one's a little better, actually. Still just a little bit off. And also, we'll be flattening out these little ridges on the end so that the bracket can lay flat. Okay, so here's what it looks like now that cleaned up the little ridges. Just be careful, whatever you use in here, to not scratch up obviously the carbon fiber around it. Wasn't much, just a little bit of cleaning that up. And now I've also just elongated these holes just a little bit, both of them on each side. And now we can see the bolt holes are lining up. So just do that for the other side. You may not have to on the other side. On this one, it's not as bad. So okay, here's what the other side looks like. I'm just using a die grinder, carbide bit on a die grinder. So these are ready to get bolted. Alright, so these are how the mounts are going to be positioned on the car. And if we look on the bottom of these, we're going to be reusing the factory hole for this one here. So that'll be going like that. And then we're just going to have to drill one more hole for this. So you can see how that'll be lining up there. And then the other hole will be through here. Okay, and this is how the brackets look on, bolted onto the wing. The flatter part is to the rear, and then this angled part is to the front. So you notice how like the wing tips are kind of pointing to the front. All right, so here's what it looks like with the base mounted onto the bracket. So I'm using a 10 millimeter for the bracket that goes on to the wing, and then I'm using a 8 millimeter and 4 millimeter hex Allen wrench for the nut. Is the 8 millimeter that goes on the inside with the washer, and then on the outside you got the 4 millimeter Allen wrench. Okay, so here's what you get, the hardware that comes with the mounts. You got a couple of gaskets for the bases, and then you got some more Allen screws, some washers, and some lock washers. So the kit doesn't come with any instructions, and I'm still trying to figure out what they want you to use where. Right now I'm just trying to get everything lined up so I can drill the holes, and I'll figure out, probably put the lock washers on everything. There's 12 of them there. Okay, so I've kind of mocked it up to kind of see where the holes are, how it's looking, and it looks like it's gonna be okay. I just gotta remove the holes, the bolt holes on the base, on the underside of the base. They're on the very edge of the outside. So in order for that washer to sit flat, I'm gonna have to remove some of this seam sealer here from the edge of the trunk. Yeah, same thing on this side. Probably even a little bit more, because the bolt hole is all the way to the outside. So it's not letting the washer sit flat. All right, so here's what I did. I removed, some of it had already been removed, but I just removed just as little as possible. You don't want to take it all off, as if you don't have to, because then you'd have to replace it. You don't want to have just an open seam. But so I can kind of show you how it's going to be. I put one of the washers on there that they provide, and so when I mocked it up, the bolt hole, it wasn't in the center, it was all the way to the right. So this is how it's probably going to look like there. And now it's got, that washer's got enough space for it to sit flat. So yeah, this is how it'll look on the outside. Yeah, basically it'll be like that on the outside. Now, this gap right here, I don't like that there. It's gonna leak. Those little gaskets they send, I don't think that's enough to keep water from, I mean, it might be, I don't know, we'll see. I might just fill it in with some seam sealer from the underside, just so that it give it a little extra protection from water leaking in the trunk. But let me show you what the other side looks like. So yeah, on this side was even less. I removed just enough to give it enough, that washer enough space. All right, so I got the wing bolted on there. With just the this bolt here. But that's pretty much, that's it. That's how it's gonna look. The bases, there are all the way to the edge. You can see there. So you kind of get an idea here how they go. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it there. That's how it's gonna look. So let me show you from the inside. Where the bolt where the bolt ended up. So yeah, that removing the seam sealer is key, because otherwise it's not gonna let the bolt's not gonna be able to line up where you need it. So I just used a razor blade, and like I said, just try to remove as little as possible. That's what the other side looks like. So now we're gonna mark the location of the bases, and then we're gonna drill that hole from the top side, right, to go through this hole. So yeah, we're gonna mark the location and then take the wing off and then drill. Okay, so just a note on the installation of these brackets that I did at the beginning. I just thought about, if you remember, I elongated those holes on this bracket, so the bolt holes on the wing would line up. Another option, instead of just elongating them, you could just enlarge the hole with like a drill bit, and then that way you would get the front to rear um, extra, space, as well as side to side space. So in that way, when you put the so what that would do is it would allow you to shift those whole mounting in more, as well as front and back, and then that way you wouldn't have this gap here, and you wouldn't have to remove as much seam sealer like I did. We are painting the wing and the deck lid because we're gonna be welding up this hole. So we're gonna be painting it anyway. So I'll be adding seam sealer here and then painting. But for somebody else who's not painting and doesn't want to have kind of like a janky looking seam sealer situation out here, maybe that would be a better option. That way this washer would cover the entire hole as well. If this bolt was more centered, you wouldn't have this little gap here. But the only way you can do that is if this entire base, right, mounts, if you're able to move it inward. And I can't move it inward because the upper brackets don't have any play from side to side. They have play from front to rear because I elongated the hole because I had to. But if the holes were in the right place from the beginning, then, none of this, we wouldn't have to do any of this. But that's what you get with aftermarket parts a lot of the time. They're not perfect. So you just have to kind of work with it and for your specific application, whatever you're working on. But anyways, yeah, I just thought of that, and just so someone else out there, there's another option than this way that I went with. So. All right, so I got it all back apart now. I just decided I'm just gonna go ahead and try to just do what I was talking about before with getting some more side to side space on these brackets for the bolts to mount on to the wing. So as you can see, like before, the bolt holes on the wing, they weren't lining up with the bolt holes on the bracket. Now that I elongated them, they are. You can see that one's like barely, but it's working, front to back wise. Now what I'm gonna do is drill a bigger hole, and that way I'm gonna have some side to side play, which is gonna allow me to kind of move these just a little bit, right? Just it's only a few millimeters on each side, and that's gonna be enough to help me get the mounting bases hole lined up more in the center. All right, so I've drilled a bigger hole, 9/32 drill bit, So as you can see now, I got plenty of space front to rear, but also side to side. So I've already got this one mounted loosely. So you can see, actually front to rear is not much wiggle room because it was just enough for it to line up. But now, side to side, it's got about 1 millimeter on each side to play with, in and out. And I think that's gonna be enough. So yeah, we're gonna put this back on and see how it looks. Okay, so we're back on with it, and no luck really. I mean, I did notice it went on this time a little bit easier, but we're still got a gap, and still, you know, seam sealer here would need to be removed. Even with that 9/32 hole, wasn't enough play to bring in the bottom mounts enough to, you know, to give this enough space to come in, you know. So we're just gonna go with it like this. I don't wanna make too big of a hole here where then it's like it's not gonna be like lining up how it's supposed to, you know. I don't want to end up with like a crooked wing when, so I mean it looks good right there, and yeah, I just don't want to make that hole too big to where there's issues down the line. But I mean it looks fine, and yeah, so we're just gonna go with that. We're gonna take the top part, the wing off, leave the bases bolted on so that we can drill this hole, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we've got the wing off. The bases are still bolted on, and I've just made a mark with the Sharpie there. So that's where our hole is gonna go. And so we'll take the bases off and drill our hole. All right, so we got our holes. I just used a 1/4 inch drill bit after making the pilot hole, so there should be plenty of space. Let me show you what it looks like on the inside. And that's lining right up there. So we're good to go. As far as fasteners, I'm thinking this is the one they want us to use. It comes with a lock nut, which is what you want on a base like this. You can see the little nylon insert there is meant to be semi-permanent. So the Allen bolt will go in through the top like that, and then the nut through the bottom. And I'm guessing they want us to use these lock washers on all of these. So That'll go like that, and this will go in here, and then the nut will come in from the bottom. So yeah, that's pretty much the install. Now you just bolt everything back on. That's the way I did it. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I did it wrong. That's just the way I figured out how to do it. So take that for what it's worth. We are going to be painting. We're going to be welding this hole up. So I'm not quite done with it, but if you didn't have an OEM wing, or you didn't care about maybe like just putting a plug on this hole, little rubber plug, if you're racing, don't care about looks or anything, maybe you could just do that. We're going to weld it up, and we're going to paint the deck lid, and we're going to be painting the wing as well. So yep, that's pretty much it. All right, so we've painted. Made a little patch out of sheet metal, and mounted it flush into the hole, and then MIG welded it, butt weld, and primer, base coat, clear coat. See what it looks like on the inside. So yeah, we're ready to do a final installation. So here's what the bases look like now with the little gaskets installed on them. I'm gonna put the bases on first this time, now that I know where everything goes. But yeah, so just as a thought about this, I realized that a lot of Miatas probably aren't going to come with the OEM wing. So that's going to make drilling these holes a lot harder, because you're going to have to drill 2 holes instead of 1, right? So, and you really don't have anything to go off of, you know. For the OEM hole, you can go off of the OEM hole, and it's a lot, you know, easier to locate this hole. But if you're starting completely with no holes, that's going to make it a little bit trickier to make sure you get the holes in the right place. I think what I would do is put everything to, you know, mount the wing onto the base and as a whole assembly, and then put the whole assembly, just lay it on the trunk and see how it's, because basically, if you notice on the bases, there's a curve, right? There's a curve to match the curve of the trunk. So you're not going to be able to, you can't have it too far back, or else it's not gonna, if you have it too far back, right, you're gonna, you know, it's not gonna fit flush. And if you have it too far forward, again, you're gonna have that little gap where the arch is on the base. So what I would do, like I said, mount the wing onto the base and then try to mock it up as an assembly onto the deck lid, to the trunk lid, and get these to where they're fitting, the curves are matching up. Right, so for me that's here, and that's, I mean, there's really no movement there. It's flush. There's too far back, right? There's too far forward. So once you kind of have that location there, you can mark it, and then once you mark it, you can take the wing off, the whole assembly off again, and you're gonna have to make a template for the bottom of the brackets to know where these holes are, that one and that one. And also make sure when you make a template that your, whatever your template material is flexible to match this curve, right? And then you'll lay your template on the deck lid, on to the marks that you made of where you positioned it. And then I think that's pretty much how I would do it, I think. I don't know, I'd have to do it, but basically you want to be really sure before you drill, you know, exactly where the holes are going to go, because you don't want to make Swiss cheese out of your trunk. And also we know this front hole, is going to be in here, in this through this opening. So that's at least one point of reference that you have. And then also the rear hole, you know, it's going to be somewhere in this vicinity where, you know, the underside of the trunk has this this curve right here too. So you kind of know where they're gonna go, but like I said, you want to be really sure before you drill. But yeah, that's how I would basically, I think, do it. It's make yourself some templates, because the kit doesn't come with templates. So make yourself some templates, fit it on there as an assembly, mark it, check it 2 times, 3 times, and then make your holes. I would do the front one first, probably. Do the front hole first, I think, and then you can do the rear one. But yeah, I think, yeah, I think that's how I would do it. So just a note on these bases. So we already know the bolt that goes in here, and then they send you this one also with the lock nut on here. That one's going to go up here for the front hole. I'm going to put a lock washer on the head, and then they send you these little washers also. So I'm going to put a washer on the nut. And then that's it, really. There's these 2 holes, but they're not threaded. They send you these. I don't know what these are meant to be for. Um, I mean, there's no thread in here, and they wouldn't even be long enough either. So I'm not sure what these are for. I don't know what these are for either. This plate goes on top like that, but it gets bolted on from the side. So yeah, I don't know. Those are the only other holes on here. So you're gonna have some extra hardware, and but I don't really think it should affect anything, because the base is going to be mounted securely. The brackets for the wing are going to be mounted securely, and then these brackets are going to be mounted there. So yeah, just a note on that. I found a larger washer for this one, so now we don't have this gap anymore. See how that turned out there with the little washer and the lock nut. Yeah, I found this washer that I had laying around. So it's larger than the ones it comes with, but the inner diameter is still fits the bolt. So that's gonna work for me there. All right, so there it is. Final install. So it came out all right. Just a note on the wing. If you're gonna paint it, I would recommend, at the very least, I don't know, sealer, and then base coat, clear coat. But honestly, it needs primer. It needs a primer surfacer. Let it dry, and then sand it, prep the primer, and then base coat, clear coat. I ran into some issues with fish eyes and wrinkling. So I think it's just the gel coat that they use for the carbon fiber, and it's just, I don't know if it's like a clear coat that's on there. I think it's just a gel coat. So that gel coat's kind of weird, so I wouldn't recommend just base coating over the gel coat if you're gonna paint it. Just a note on that. But yeah, everything else came out all right. Yep.